So my vision was I wanted cash flowing assets. I didn't want to be in a position where I fell back down to ground zero. Right. So I was asking myself, how can I acquire these properties? Now, some of the people that may be watching this may be thinking, I need a 20% down payment and I need to have, good credit or this and that to be able to go and get a loan from the bank. I purchased all the properties creatively. Right. And without using my own money. So again, I was focusing on my information, my network, and time.
Yo, welcome to another episode of the Israel Miller podcast. I'm super excited about today's guest. My guest today is Chad Yesilova. He's a real estate investor and entrepreneur who specializes in the co-living model of real estate, particularly focusing on rental properties, renting properties by the room to increase cash flow. He's an expert who helps other people transition and becoming property investors using the co-living model. And I like this interview is going to be a banger. But before we get started, please do me a huge favor and smash that subscribe button. All right, let's get to it. So, Chad, listen, man, I've been doing some research on you. You're known for acquiring 18 properties within a 10-month period without using any of your own money. Like, that's super impressive. Can you just walk us through how you accomplished it and what specific strategies made this possible for you?
Yeah. Look, first and foremost, I just want to thank you for having me as well. And you're a great contributor to the community as a sub 2 leader, organizing events and bringing a lot of this, I guess, the knowledge and the people uh, to everyone else as well, and just making it all accessible. My success wouldn't have been possible without people like yourself that have, been contributing as
Yeah,
well. And so I'm feeding off the energy, the knowledge and the enthusiasm. But more importantly, when you're organizing these events as well, it's basically like networking and partnerships that really do make it possible.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's what we're here for. We're just here to provide value to the community, however possible, just trying to give cutting edge knowledge to help people grow.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So, I mean, true to what I was saying earlier, it is connecting with people. So, I'm a former stockbroker. I had raised capital for a living and it was incredibly exciting, but I was doing that from a young age. So, I had partnered with a senior advisor and it's not like they were out looking for me. Even my contribution as an unpaid intern was costly for them, so I had to really sell myself. And so, by doing that, I was able to partner with an expert who, showed me the next steps. So I didn't have to, waste time trying to figure out whether my underwriting was actually going to be valuable. Because, if an expert is actually telling me that it's a good deal, yes, I was blindly following, but that's better, in my opinion, than, as a complete newbie trying to underwrite something and determining whether, my knowledge is actually going to be valuable in that moment. And so they had already achieved success. So if they said it was good, I just went with it. The decision making of, moving forward with something as well, that was basically delegated to the experts. Right. So after that, I would, started my own business because I was helping all these corporate advisors make a lot of money, small to medium enterprises make a lot of money as well. And as an entrepreneur, you know, everything was resting on one pillar, my income. Right. And when, that all came crumbling down during COVID and the interest rates going up, I took responsibility and said, this is my mistake, right? Because everything was resting on one pillar. So how can I align myself with an expert, use the same model as I did back in the stockbroking days? And just like the events that you're holding and the people that you're, connecting with and understanding who and what they actually do, I connected with an expert, right? So I had the sales, the negotiation skills, uh, pretty locked down. And
right.
so when they told me, hey, this is what we need to do. I'm going to, set up these uh, ads. We're going to, speak to motivated sellers. And this is what we need to aim for, which I did. Right.
Hmm.
And actually, that wasn't really my target. My target was if he's telling me that this is good, let me do better because then it makes a no brainer. And that's
Right.
how I was mitigating, my risk as well. And so, one property went to another. And like during that time, I just really wanted cash flowing assets, which is what was my focus. So that's how I got like, from 0 to 18 properties within the first 10 months.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah,
So guys, like what y'all gotta realize, like Chad, he didn't figure this out on his own. He partnered and he went under someone's wing. He found himself a mentor, which I'm always talking about. Like that's a major key to becoming successful. Find someone who already is doing or have done what you're trying to get, what you're trying to do, and connect with them and provide
absolutely.
value to them for sure.
Yeah, and the shortcut really is connecting with people just like yourself, because if you're organizing these events, you already know who's who, who's doing what. So you could be that, the connector. That really is a shortcut, and it's just attending these different events as well. So I often tell people, because, when you're speaking to, there are three types of people that I usually speak to, like they're complete newbies, there you go,
Mhm.
who haven't purchased a property. And then there's like, experience. And then the other types of people that I speak to are, too busy doing their own thing. They're investors and, sorry, they're achieving mastery within their own craft, or they already have, they're high income earners. And they just say, look, I just want to come along for the ride. I want to ride that tsunami that you're creating. Right?
Right.
And so, if it's complete newbies, they're like, understandably running around like headless chickens. Okay. But if they do connect with someone like yourself, you're able to point them in the right direction. And so then it could be, because I know that you're doing some excellent things as well. And, or it could be, hey, I really want someone who's just focusing on co-living right now, or
Mhm.
multifamily. Okay, connect with that person. And it's just as
Exactly.
simple as like plugging into the program, shaking hands and saying hi.
That's it. It's that simple, guys. It's that
Yeah.
simple. And we help people all day long. I have a lot of people that's approaching me that's coming into the community and just want to get involved in real estate investing. And I simply ask them, what is your avatar? What is it that you want to do in this game? And I have no issues with passing them on to the person who will help them best. That's what we do. That's exactly what we do. So,
Yeah.
Chad, you're known for specializing in the co-living model of real estate, particularly renting properties by the room to increase cash flow, right?
Yeah.
So, what kind of returns are investors particularly seeing with this model compared to traditional rental approaches?
Okay, so when I started off, initially it was long-term rentals, but you're finding them in markets generally that wouldn't appreciate, and so you're making about $200-$300 per month. So the return on that, in my opinion, was a little low, and you know, cash flow without appreciation for me was not that appealing, right?
Mhm.
So then I went to midterm rentals, and I know that I'm answering this in a long-winded way, but I just want everyone to understand the thought process as well and why it was so appealing for me. So, going into the appreciating markets as well, I went down the midterm rental route as well, which is great. And I understand that it works incredibly well for some people. But, for me, the sophistication level was like, a little too high. And I, consider myself someone who does a lot of research, and I go down the rabbit hole and courses and YouTube University and so forth, and speaking to a lot of people. But it was, one door, one tenant, and I thought, hey, like scaling this is actually going to be a little chaotic. So now, when I saw that co-living was taking off, it reminded me of my time in Australia growing up with my friends who are like high income earning individuals, like lawyers and management consultants. But we all lived together. It made a lot of sense. We didn't actually even question it. It's just like, two-bedroom townhome in that same market is $2 million. So the savings rate needed to be faster or higher than the growth rate in order to be able to get into the market, right? So when I saw that
Mhm.
it was taking off here, I looked at the numbers, and you're able to achieve anywhere from, say, 5% through to 40%, sometimes even up to 50% cash on cash return. So if you're watching this and you are wondering, like, what is cash on cash return? It's like, if I'm investing $100,000, 5% is $5,000. That's the income that you generate on that money that you invest, the cash up front.
Right.
And as someone who is, business savvy as well, I brought my business partner along, Carlos, as well, who is just a natural born hunter. And he was able to go into that marketplace as well. And so, really find the opportunities where you're getting the 20% cash on cash returns. Now, occasionally you'll come across like something a lot higher as well. Okay. And that does come from experience. But anyone that's actually watching this, I would just recommend get into the first deal. Don't buy the wrong house, right? Don't look for that home run deal because while you're underwriting and spending time thinking about whether you're buying it, I've already snapped it up, right? And there's other experts like me.
Like, where'd it go?
Exactly. And so like what I love about those types of returns, like, 20%, 30%, 40% cash on cash returns is it's appealing for me as an investor. Okay. But I'm playing the bigger game, right? My inspirations are people like Sam Zell who don't really know what the ceiling or the limits are, right? He had a $29 billion portfolio and sold that over to Blackstone again. And so, and just before, like, the global financial crisis as well. So he got out at an incredible time. But I'm looking at those returns. I'm thinking, look, if I want to build my community of investors and help others, which is, to be honest, the cornerstone of what I'm actually doing, right? This is a great investment vehicle, not only for myself, but for bringing others up, the partners, right? Helping them achieve cash flow and wealth. So then that way, as you grow, you can play that bigger game. And the bigger game I'm referring to, like 100 plus door assets, like multifamily, you know, I was recently at a 3-day event with Nissan Mosery, who I've recently partnered with as well. And this guy is an absolute dynamite, right? Like, and he had a little community that, like, at this 3-day event of people that are doing assisted living facilities with 100 plus beds, right? And you're speaking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets, and in order to be able to get a seat at the table with those guys, you need to have a track record of shareholder management, partnership management, and you need to, like, be able to raise the capital. So if you've got a reputation of just working only for yourself, that's going to be difficult. Whereas if you're doing these other things, then you're going to have that opportunity to be able to sit at the table with these bigger players.
Hmm.
And I think that that's one of the hidden benefits of co-living, right? And
Right.
so in addition to, like, that high cash on cash return, I'm thinking, okay, would other investors really like to have a piece of that pie? Because even at, like, if I offered them a 12% return out of the 30%, 20% that I'm making, would they be happy? I think that would be ecstatic, right?
Hmm.
Because that's like
No,
hard money rates.
right.
Yeah. Plus, like you can either negotiate to give, like, 50% ownership or maybe like slightly less. It really depends on what you actually want to negotiate. But in my case, I just want to overload them with a lot of value. So then that way, I'm building a community of other people who are achieving success as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Dope, dope, dope.
Yeah.
So look, I actually got to interview Nissan as well a few weeks ago, man, and he's definitely a powerhouse in the multi-unit space, man. I
Yeah.
definitely look forward to partnering with him very, very soon for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, like, like it's great now to be able to, if someone is actually watching this and they're, thinking about just starting out, what do I actually do? Right. Even with, like, because big multifamily like that may not necessarily be relatable, believable just yet.
Hmm.
But with, co-living or, single family, just by, if, because we've got, a presentation coming up at your like meetup as well, which is great, but come attend and, like, be close and say hi as well. Right. Because what happens when you start listening to these people and surrounding yourself with other players as well, the believability starts to increase because you go from not believing to believing. And that's, like, the first step, the big step.
Exactly. Just
Yeah,
being in the right rooms with the right people, man.
exactly.
When you're seeing people and you're shaking hands with the people who's actually doing the thing, it just makes it so much more believable and you know it's attainable.
Exactly.
Right,
And
right.
so I know that some people are watching this thinking, it's easy for you to say, and that could not be possible for someone like me in my current circumstances. But as you mentioned, like 18 properties in 10 months. And, I was actually in the process of going through my visa process as well. And my business was actually crumbling during that time as well. So, like the resources that people have on hand, they don't actually even realize, you know? So
Right.
one key thing that I really really want to add, like people focus on like the money as the currency, right?
Mhm.
But if you're short on money, then you need to be abundant in the other forms of currency as well. So like information, right?
Mhm.
Network,
Right.
time,
Time.
right? Exactly. Because if you're becoming abundant in those areas and acquiring all of this information and you're building the right networks, then you're becoming someone like that's really, really valuable for someone that has the money but doesn't have the information, the network, or the time. Right. So you put those pieces together and you're learning creative finance at the same time as well. And you're starting to really, I guess, look at problems as a way to exercise your courage and your creativity, then like there's no limit to what you can achieve.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let me ask you another question. Like you got a lot of real estate experts who just focus on single family homes or apartment buildings, but you carved out this niche with co-living.
Yeah.
What particularly you touched on it, but I just wanted to clarify, like what made you focus on this particular strategy and what advantages does it offer in today's market, in today's economy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I locked down because I knew it and understood it. I lived with my friends and we lived together for a number of years as well. I mean, look, it was a little while ago, but like, probably about 5 years, right? Had the best time. And I know that, with co living models right now, it could be complete strangers, which I've also done when I first moved out of home. And it was something that was actually quite common within the Sydney, Australia market as well, because just Google the Sydney
Mhm.
real estate prices. It's ridiculous, right? And and it was great because it gave me the opportunity, like I was living with some Slavic people as well. And like, one night, they would be like, hey, we're going to have some Slivovitska. And I'm like, man, I don't know what the hell that is. It's like, well, you don't need to. Here, have a shot. Right. And I had a shot and I had a great time.
Shut
Right.
up
So
and
it just,
drink.
exactly. And it made so much sense to me. I had a great time. And so, you know, um, when I saw like, the model really taking off here, I thought, look, people are looking for the convenience. Like they're busy, especially like, affordable housing is in demand right now as well. And, really high percentage of people are, spending right now about 30% of the total income, okay, household income on either mortgage or rent. And some people are spending up to 50%, so
Right.
it's increasing. And so people have got so many things to worry about. And it's it's the convenience that you're offering that is, making it a really attractive offering. Right. So if you can be nice and you can present something that is also nice and it's also incredibly convenient. So single flat monthly fee and make it as easy as possible for them, then the only thing that they need to remember is the rent payment date,
Hmm.
right? And we make it easy for them as well because we remind them, especially like, yeah,
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 for sure. So
exactly.
look,
So like it was just a great model, and as I said, I think that because of the high returns that you're achieving, I mean, I'm in this for the bigger game, right? And I think that like with co-living, it's an incredible stepping stone, and it's a stepping stone that is filled with like rocket fuel as well, because you basically, I mean, it's a great launch pad, and and I just believe that if it makes a lot of sense now and affordable housing crisis is only becoming a bigger issue over time as well, then I don't believe it's going to be disrupted anytime soon. People still need shelter.
mhm,
AI and technology, I don't believe, is going to have an impact on this. And, you look at other markets, and I'm been referring to Sydney, Australia, you know, co living has been making a lot of sense there for a number of years now. I mean, when I was living with my friends, we're talking about like I'm dating myself now, but it was about 15 years ago,
right.
and or thereabouts, right? And so, yeah, I just don't think that it's going to, go away anytime soon. So I think it's a great business model.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And like I also used to live in a co-living house for my first 2 years in school. When I went to college, I rented a room. I rented a
Yeah.
room. I stayed in my room. I used the kitchen. and then I typically just went to campus for everything else. So
Yeah.
yeah, like the co-living model, it's new. It's not new. It's been around since forever, but it's becoming more real and necessary because of just the expense of everything.
Benefits are becoming more mainstream. Like I think,
Yeah,
compared to when
that's
I
the word.
first started, the I guess like the people like there's first and foremost, there's a lot more demand. Okay. But when I first started, people were asking, okay, so you mean that I'm going to share my bathroom, my kitchen? It's like, yep. It's like, who in their right mind would want to share those things? Right. And so now it's cool. How do I pay? How do I get started? Right. So, I mean, the demand has certainly increased. The knowledge of it
Yeah,
is going mainstream. And while people had a very cynical view in the beginning, now what I'm actually starting to hear, especially from the older folks, is look, they could be divorcees, right? And
right.
so, and they could be a little older as well. So, in some of my homes, you've got like, 62-year-old up to an 83-year-old actually. And you would never guess that he's 83 just from the way he moves around and, still working on his vehicle and so forth. But they want to be around other people.
Hmm.
They
You need
want to
that
be in an
community.
environment where they can step out of like their room and actually see other people, and now that benefit is overshadowing any of that cynicism that we were getting, like, from when I first started.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. And I know it makes sense for a lot of people. So guys, like if you're resonating with anything that Chad is saying, or if you got any questions, go ahead and leave a comment. Feel free to ask us questions and we'll be sure to reply to your questions and give you full-fledged answers. And it
Yeah,
also gives us
100%.
it'll give me an opportunity to bring Chad back and interview him again for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
100%. Like, guys, if you're actually watching this and whatever you're actually thinking, whatever your thoughts may be, I would just highly recommend that you get started by just leaving a comment, because that alone is starting to create some proximity. Okay. But at the same time, it's moving you towards, if you're thinking about doing this model, about making it happen. Right. It all
Uh,
starts with just something as simple as that, because each day,
Asking a question.
yeah, exactly, because each action, like, the results just compound. And while it may not appear like you're doing much, while I was, getting those first few units, it was, I felt like I was actually moving a little slow. Right.
Hmm.
And so now, as I'm starting to work towards, building that community and achieving more success, we're starting to close on more properties now, so just this month alone, we've already closed on one property. We got another one on under contract on Wednesday, and it's Saturday today. So that's 3-4 days ago now. And another one is basically due to close as well. So, you know, the point is that like there is growth, but there's compounding and that deceptive period as well, where, like, you are experiencing growth, but it doesn't feel like it. And just trust that
Right,
process.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. So, Chad, is like now that you talking about growth and we're speaking a lot about your success. And you spoke a little bit earlier about your background, but I want to dig into a little bit about where you came from. So, like before you became a real estate investor, just reiterate what your profession was and go into a little bit about how those experiences prepared you for the success that you're achieving right now in real estate.
So, I mean, I was always entrepreneurial, but, my parents were quite strict. They really valued education. I'm incredibly grateful for that as well. And so, the ideal path for my parents would have been do well in college and then get a great job and then work my way up. However, I was wired a little differently, right? So
Hmm.
I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit within me. And so from the earliest, like I can remember, like, age of 5, I was always looking at trying to sell something. And so it was, while I was at university, that I decided, okay, I'm going to study business. But, I was working for someone else, and the idea of trading time for money, again, I just really made me feel like I was suffocating. Right. So then I went into stockbroking, which was, started off as an unpaid intern. And so in that, what you're doing is working together with senior advisors, but ultimately it's a sales position. But I just loved Bloomberg News and financial news because there was no upper limit. So
Right.
but you're thinking long term as well, because how else as a young 20-year-old are you going to attract, partners in accounting firms and so forth to become a client, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
was more about like delivering value, delaying that gratification as well. So in my first and second year, I wasn't making a lot of money, but again, people underestimate that deceptive period, right? And so it becomes their weakness, whereas my competitive advantage is, just playing that longer game, right? So, I was all these people that were sitting on the sideline watching, I would keep them up to date. And this was, kind of before social media as well. So I was like, sending them text messages, emails as well. And then before you know it, year three, they would all start to drop in. So by the time, like I had a great deal that, for me to raise $1 million, the time it took to do that, I was writing down people's names. So Israel, $50,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how long it took to actually raise $1 million. So, and I absolutely loved it, because what like I just believe that not many people were thinking about getting money to work for them. And just like me, though, everything was resting on one pillar. So I made it my mission to have money work for them as opposed to them working for money. And I believe everyone needs that. And so I'm using like literally that same model right now, but then like after that, I got into, starting my own business, because like I was seeing all these small to medium enterprises lists. And so going into my own business, you're wearing so many different hats. You're moving around in so many different directions as well, constantly putting out fires, working with different partners, getting burnt. So like the biggest lesson there that I can, tell anyone that's actually watching this, because they've been in real estate as well. And I've been hearing some horror stories, like people have been getting burnt or bad partnerships. Those are actually blessings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you are where you need to be and you're learning that lesson at that moment in time. And it can either throw you off track. Okay. But if you're playing that longer game, it's starting to value and understand, okay, how do I actually create these great partnerships? Right.
Right.
And so my view on a great partnership is, let's get started working now on a small project. And for a lot of the people right now, that small project is getting involved with the co-living, right? So I'll do absolutely everything. And sometimes like some people that I partner with say, look, I'm sitting on this money right now. I don't know what to do with it, but I do want to get into real estate and learn. Great. I'll get you to focus on only one task, which is put up the funds. Okay. And then I'll do absolutely everything else, but anything that you want to learn along the way, you want to start taking over the property management side of things, great, do it. And I'll encourage them to actually do it. And so, you fast forward 3, 4, 5 years time with that person for them to make that decision of, okay, like let's put 300 grand into this big deal, right? You want that to be a no brainer decision, So, some people do get burnt. Okay. And like,
Happens.
yeah, it happens. But that's when you start to value the other people who are doing right by you. So there's a greater emphasis now on like, hey, I really value those strong partnerships. Right. And, I mean, you even read about the most successful people and they talk about how this circle is really, really small, right? It's
Right.
because ideas are abundant, trusted people, okay, and who you can do big deals with, it ends up being like, quite small. But those are people that you do repeated business with,
Mm-hmm.
So the longer game is like, that I want to make sure, okay, that everyone is incredibly well looked after. I'm always seeking feedback as well. But the aim is to actually give, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I would say that those have been like, my big takeaways as well. But maybe another one is just resilience, because someone, experiences a little bit of hardship and they say, why me? So in entrepreneurship, you watch the bigger guys like, Patrick Bet David or something. And, I remember watching a video of his and, he was saying like, one guy on stage was talking about how, you know, a negative, like an adverse event happened and that, it destroyed his cash flow. And he's like, okay, well, did you raise more money? You know, because other companies within the industry, I imagine that they would have pulled back. So you could be the person who raises $400 million and start acquiring all of these other businesses and give all these salespeople a new home. Like great. And I'm thinking, like for someone who, like, it's a completely different mindset. One is defeated. Okay. Yeah. And then another person is seeing that as an opportunity. So, like, when you own these rental homes as well, it's like, oh man, the HVAC is out. Shit, what am I going to do? Like, that's an $8,000 problem. Right. Whereas
Hmm.
for someone like Patrick Bet David, it's like, probably going to be how do I acquire more of these homes and raise that little bit more to create a buffer. Right. So then if
Right.
the HVAC does go out,
It don't matter.
exactly.
It don't matter. Yeah, like people fold way too easily, man. They take them negative situations, and they fold. They tuck they tail and walk away. Whereas, as you mentioned, like they gotta use that as a stepping stone. Learn the lesson that you need to learn from it, and use it as a stepping stone to level up. And it's a lot of it has to do with mindset and your perspective on what's really happening here.
Yeah. And as much as it is easy for like, you to see on Instagram or other social media, like step out of your comfort zone, the real test is when you're actually put in a position where you are out of your comfort zone, because that's when
Right.
it matters most. Right. And
Absolutely.
that's when, people really crumble. But, I remind myself in the most difficult moments and I'm like, I'm actually grateful for this moment right now because it is going to make me do things, okay, that maybe I was too comfortable to do before.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. So like, I mean, from when I first purchased those properties and I had a partner involved, he was used to being a solo actor, right?
Mhm.
And so, when you're starting to multiply the problems across more properties, it was a little more like, than what he was actually comfortable with. Now, he is a great guy and it's nothing against him. And like, people have their own limits as to what they are willing to actually tolerate. This is why I think, sharing your vision or even just understanding yourself is incredibly important. So, I refer to Sam Zell because if I now experience a problem, I would say, what would Sam Zell do? I mean, he's now dead, so it wouldn't do much. But like, but like, the thing is, you want to basically harness the energy as to what these bigger players would actually do,
Mhm.
to give you a different perspective, to give you a renewed level of energy. And so I bought him out. Okay? And straight after I bought my, business partner out, like, I bought another property as well. Right. And so, I wanted to use that opportunity more as like, if it's a chapter in a book, an exciting one.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
It's just that this is writing your own story, writing your bestseller,
exactly.
creating your blockbuster movie. Like, yeah. So
Yeah,
like you touched on it a little bit earlier. My next question. So how you got let's like dig into how you got started. And people a lot of people are starting from the same position. Like a lot of our listeners and people that we're involved in, they come into real estate. They are professionals. They have stable incomes, but it's not enough. They feel trapped, living paycheck to paycheck, right? So, like looking at your financial situation when you got started, how did you overcome them initial mindset barriers, financial barriers that made you want to enter or get into real estate?
yeah. So I guess, the first thing is your reality is going to be based on whatever you believe to be true.
Mhm.
So I'm speaking to, many people at events and they'll say, look, I'm limited by the income that I generate. Right. Or I'm not earning enough or I don't have any savings. And so, you know, like in I guess like the very first step is first understanding yourself, okay, and that's going to be difficult, but imagine just watching yourself from a bird's eye view, right? You're watching this character play in the game of life, right? And so there are other people out there that are buying real estate without using their own money. So if you have an open mind, then you can say, okay, well, my limitations could be that I think that I need to use my own money. I think that I need to physically be in the market that I want to buy in. Okay. I think that I need much more knowledge than I do to get started. I think that I need to do it all on my own, that I can't trust anybody. Right. So these are some of the limitations that I'm actually seeing from the people that I meet. Right. And so after you do that, then you can start writing down how it can actually be possible. Start researching that. right?
Right.
Because if you start researching it, now you're starting to expand the possibilities.
Right.
Yeah. And if you start expanding on those possibilities, like in my case, it was okay, I don't have the resources. I mean, I don't have the knowledge. I'm gonna partner with someone that has the knowledge, right? Because they
Right.
can basically get me started like straight away. Because I do have some skills. While I may not know which skills are going to be valuable, I'll know soon enough the moment I actually partner with someone, right? And then, the next one was like I had a vision as well. So my vision was I wanted cash flowing assets. I didn't want to be in a position where I fell back down to ground zero. Right. So I was asking myself, how can I acquire these properties? Now, some of the people that may be watching this may be thinking, I need a 20% down payment and I need to have, good credit or this and that to be able to go and get a loan from the bank. I purchased all the properties creatively, right? And without using my own money. So again, I was focusing on my information, my network, and time. And by creative, I didn't know what was possible, but after researching and expanding the possibilities, I realized there are guys out there like absolute powerhouses like Pace Morby and a bunch of other people as well who are, using creative finance, so seller finance, or taking over the mortgage payments of someone who's already done all the hard work to get a low interest rate, right? So, the property that we closed on, about a week and a half ago now, and that one's got a 2.75% interest rate, right? So people are sitting on this market right now saying, oh, the interest rates are too high and I can't really do anything and I've got to wait and this is terrible. I'm thinking, man, this is the best time to buy right now.
Mm-hmm.
The inventory's at its highest and like the lowest for like number of transactions in the last 30 years. And I'm thinking, okay, like some people are going to be desperate to sell. And the service that I'm offering is to take it off their hands. Like these people were incredibly grateful that I took that, off their hands. And so, like now I'm exploring that is actually possible. Okay. And by my network and my experience within stockbroker, I'm thinking, man, the returns on this are going to be incredible. So like, let me speak to some potential investors, let me get them involved, and not just for the rate, but like, the bigger vision as well, and so like, that was then, and then I start like, and then I asked around about partners and I wanted to understand what the limitations for some of these people were that I was speaking to. And so they don't know, but when I partnered with the first mentor, he was incredibly time poor. He was doing everything on his own. So I said, well, let me just take over some of the tech. Let me take over some of the hard work. And I actually wanted to take on all the work. And so some of the people's limitations are that they want to do the least amount of work for the highest return. I said, let me take on all the work. There you go. So much so that, the only thing that I want you to do is just tell me, is this good? What do we need to change? Because that knowledge was very valuable,
Right.
right? So I
Right.
needed to free up his time enough to be able to do those things and to get that type of knowledge. And so, that's how it all started. Okay. And I'm thinking, so yeah, we, made the decisions and I delegated that purchase decision to him. And for a lot of new people that are watching this, like they may be a little gun shy about making that decision. Right. And so they'll procrastinate. And so if you're sitting on a good deal, that's when someone like me is going to snap it up because the time it takes for me to make a decision after I see something good is zero. Right. I do it instantly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sitting on it, okay, one of the benefits that you're going to get from a partnership is they'll make that buying decision straight away. And as long as it's not the wrong property, then it's a positive thing, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, like I mean, he made that decision. Yeah, let's move forward with it. I'm like, great, let's roll, right?
Right.
And so, like that was pretty much the early days. And any time there was actually a difficult negotiation as well, I actually wanted to take it on. Right. So I'll give you some like, examples as well. There was an 8-unit multifamily in Terre Haute, Indiana. And I mean, this place, like, firstly, the person selling the property as well was incredibly difficult to negotiate with. And, like the house was like, a little bit worn down as well. And I was, but basically, like, I needed to research different lenders, TSCR lenders. And, there was going to be a seller finance component as well. And I was negotiating 0% on that. And so it was just constantly going back and forth. But I called so many different lenders to see if it was actually going to be possible for them to lend on this deal. Now, anyone that's actually an expert watching this is going to say, yeah, that's easy. For someone just starting out, it wasn't. Right. I was speaking to so many different people and it needed to be done within a certain time frame as well. And so I got it. But we didn't end up moving on that deal because someone snapped it up just before us, right? So I was pretty upset about that. But on another deal, it was an older gentleman. He was suffering from pancreatic cancer, but he was still very on the ball, like incredibly switched on. And he took this like attitude with him to the grave, right? Because I mean, he's since passed away, but he was tough, really tough to crack. And so I bought like he had 74 properties and I said, I'll take them all. Cause like the numbers all worked out as, cause they all cash flowed. But he said, let's start off small. And, I'm taking out a lot of bits here, but he was a grouchy man. Like if you say one wrong thing, he'll swear and then hang up. And then you'll have to call back a couple of days later. So I was softening him up as well. And then the first package that I bought from him, 9 properties, because of these constraints that I'd put on myself as well in a negotiation, like we didn't have any money, but I wanted cash flowing assets. So we negotiated zero down. And at the closing, I got paid because we received all the security deposits,
Yeah.
right, from the properties. So, and then, like the cash flow on that, the total rental income was like, about 6,000. And the monthly payment that I was making to the seller was 2,150. So there was about a $4,000 spread. So now you can see, like, why I wanted to buy that entire portfolio from him.
Yeah.
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 But it's negotiations like that, constraints, and it's not giving up. Like anyone else would have said, this guy is too grouchy, like not going to deal with it. It's like I want that difficulty. Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, man, you just said a mouthful. It's like you just touched on a lot of different things. The mindset, the deal acquisitions, like you touched on. All right, so let me get my thoughts together. All right, so you just told us a story about how you acquired this package deal.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what was your very first co-living deal? What lessons
Yeah.
what lessons did you learn from your very first deal that still applies in your business today?
Okay. So the very first co-living deal was actually a 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. I think like it's about a 1,500 square foot property as well in in the Orlando region, right, of Florida. And, you know, like I guess, like, my business partner and I at the time, like, we decided to buy that property. We were a little naive, there were like no real people that we were able to speak to as such. Like, it was, me relying on my business partner to tell me whether, it was going to be worthwhile adding another bathroom. Right. And so we explored adding another bathroom. Is it something that I would do right now? No. But, it was 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom. We sent our contractors in there. So it was okay. How do we find these contractors? Right. Who do we actually speak to? And how do you find the right contractors? Because you hear all these stories about people, getting scammed by their contractors. So they pay them all this money and then, you know, partially like, part of the way through, these guys dip. Right. And so, how do you find them? Are they going to be able to tell me the right thing? And, at the time I was, in South America as well. So this buying decision was being made while I'm in South America and like, the properties in
Investing in
Orlando.
Orlando.
Yeah. And I'm finding contractors as well. And like, we're going to add a bathroom there as well. And so, I guess like the first one was like, I guess the strength was like the courage to move forward. And when new problems presented itself, again, like this is where I was exercising my creativity. But we explored the bathroom and we added that. And initially the contractor said, yeah, we'll be able to reroute like, the plumbing as well. So it just should work really well. And, the underwriting was not the best. So we raised a certain amount of money from our investor. And, just even finding that investor, like while you're doing all this work, managing a bunch of properties, putting out all these fires, but, going out there and speaking to people. And, we got an investor on board who was happy to be on board as well, like, because she was getting a great return, but it was getting creative about, finding her as well. And so, like, to this day, I don't actually know what she looks like, and, but, yeah, but lovely, lovely person, right? Incredible person, and, I know the importance of making sure that you look after your investors, okay? But while we were actually cash poor, one of the problems that came up is that, we required a septic tank on this property, right?
Mhm.
And that was told to us, by the contractors about 70-80% of the way through. And it's like, how much is that gonna cost? Okay, it's like 12 to 15 grand. Like, okay, well, I've got certain principles. Like, I don't like to go back to investors for capital calls. Now, I know that some circumstances you can't like
Can't
change,
avoid
but
it.
yeah, can't avoid it. Um, but now, like, especially in the beginning, I didn't want my problem to be someone else's problem. Like it was poor underwriting. It was like, okay, cool. We've got to overcome that. We need to come up with the
Mhm.
money. Okay, so covered that. And it took a lot longer as well to complete that construction. And so we weren't sure if we were actually even going to be able to fill this property. So, while I was on the pad split platform to begin with, and I mean, full disclosure, I think like, while they have a place in the market, I don't use them anymore. But like what I was doing in the beginning was doing my own marketing as well. So sending all the leads over to Pad Split website, hoping that they would pop out the other end as an applicant, right? And this is where I was having some conversations with some elderly people as well. It's like, who in their right mind would want to share? I'm hearing all this like, negativity, and I'm thinking, oh man, like, because my perception was, what I was experiencing in Sydney, Australia. So now I'm starting to hear some resistance as well. And I'm thinking, okay, like, um, I hope this actually does work out. Fingers crossed. And so like, we overcame those problems, and then we ended up filling the place as well, right?
Right.
And now, the beginner mindset would say, I don't want to make any mistakes. Go, looking back, I'm glad that I did get started with that property. And I'm glad that I had that attitude of whatever problem I face, I'm going to solve it. And it's
Mhm.
only going to make me a much better investor as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So you mentioned like you was in South America. You invested in Orlando for your very first one.
Yeah.
So and I know today, like you and I was I know you're also doing
Yep.
remote property acquisitions. Like that's a standard part of your strategy. So,
Correct.
like, how do you manage properties, the construction, the placement of quality tenants when you're not physically present in the marketplace?
So it comes back to that exercise that I mentioned earlier. If the limitation or the constraint, right, is going to be, hey, I want to buy in different markets. Like, for example, I bought in Terre Haute, Indiana. I've never been to Indiana, right?
This is wild.
Yeah. But, those properties, just to give you an idea, it was 9 property package purchased for $300,000, but we sold it as a wrap for $470,000. Right? With $70,000 down. So suddenly we had like, big chunk of change that we received. But I would have missed out on that opportunity if I didn't have this constraint, which I flipped. So as part of like, being able to work with the constraints, it's, I'll relate it to like first, as far as like, the construction goes, I work with people who have worked with other people that I know so I can get some references.
Hmm.
Right. And it's just got to be negotiated right as well. So, negotiating right basically just means that, like with some contractors, what I hear from other contractors, and that's what I would recommend as well, have a chat to like, other contractors out there and understand how their business actually works. If you give them money up front for the job, they could be using that money to pay off for the
Another
previous job.
project.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know that at the time. Okay. But I did do a lot of research again, and so I wanted to make sure that it was negotiated right. I want to see, like, there's either very little money up front just to get you guys started with all the suppliers and maybe some part labor as well. But I want to see the progress before I release some more funds as well. And I do want to see regular, progress. And so I get a lot of content as well. And
Mhm.
so, we're keeping people up to date in my Facebook community about, the Converse property as well, like, that we recently just purchased. And so I'll be doing a lot more of, just presenting that content as well. But just getting regular videos, but also, couple that with like boots on the ground as well. Now, realistically, and this is, where you need to be real and honest with yourself. If I were to physically go to the property, I would be educating myself, right? On like but I wouldn't be the expert. So if I were to go and physically see, like, okay, look, we've put the drywall up and this is what we're doing, and this is the problem that we experienced and how we overcame it, I'm not going to know, right?
Mhm.
So I send in another expert there as well, right? And so if you're buying in that market, it's, just jumping out like on, different websites, like whether it's Craigslist or Thumbtack as well. Just speak to a few people, pay them the $50 to do a walkthrough of the property. But in the ad, just put, I want someone with, real estate experience, someone that's done some handyman work, someone that understands what to look for during construction, right? Basic things that you can actually put. So when they do go there, they can actually tell you if they're not good, send someone else, right? Or send someone else anyway. So you're getting two, three different perspectives. And they kind of become your eyes and ears. But as you start going to the, the communities as well, that, places like meetups that you're doing as well, you get to meet people who are enthusiastic about being your boots on the ground in certain areas. And they're people
Mhm.
that you're building a relationship with as well, right? So all of those things were absolute key for me. But as far as like, the property management for co-living, because I'm in Miami, right? It's expensive here. And I know that some people are operating co-living here as well, but this isn't the market that I wanted to start in. It is a market that I will explore. But right now, I don't have any co living properties here. But, some are in Texas. And so what do we do? Right. So, I mean, I'll, mention like, some key things that have been incredibly useful for me. Okay. But number one, it's that handyman, right? That I was actually telling you about, whether it's through Thumbtack, Craigslist, because these people are there from the very beginning and they understand the concept, right? And when you build that relationship and you buy another property within that market, these guys are going to be the ones to say, okay, well, you can add this many rooms to this particular house, and this is how we can structure it. This is the video walkthrough. So all of those things now for me come easy as a result of doing that first step. The second eyes and ears is my cleaner, right? So they go in once a month, but like at the very least, but I'm thinking about changing that to twice a month.
Okay.
And, if anyone's thinking, okay, well, I'm going to increase the amount of like money that I'm actually going to pay, like, here's a pro tip. So it could be like $100 a month for the first clean, okay? And and then what you can negotiate is, hey, if I'm doing two times a month, can we do 160? Right. So it's only a 60% jump in the amount that you're actually paying, but that $60 is going to be greater value for the tenants, right? So you may be able to increase the rent by, $60 or more as a result, or get greater retention, right? But they'll appreciate it as well. And so, the cleaners know, and, I create like a checklist as well. Cause sometimes like, we put up signs, say, okay, like these are the assigned areas for certain tenants. And they'll just tell me like, hey, this tenant is good, or that, like, this area is getting a little dirty. So again, they're our eyes and ears, right? And they're going to be much better than I am, because especially if they're going in twice a month, right? So,
Right. Right.
yeah. Now, this third one, okay, is the key, and this is going to be great value for anyone that's got co-living as well. It's, you want like, I pick an assistant in the house as well. So just like a residential assistant in student housing, I've got a co-living assistant, right? So this one is basically your permanent eyes and ears in the house. Now what no one else knows that they're working with me. And so, by the way, like none of these people, like, we've got our own in-house property management, and they don't know who the owner is, right? So it's never us, right? But we pick one person that actually shows more responsibility than others, right? So this person would basically be doing, like minor tasks. So like, if for example, the dishes are piling up in the sink, they'll let us know. We have a group chat, and this group chat is incredibly important for all the tenants because it's a way to vent, right? Or it's like, hey guys, I'm noticing dirty dishes in the sink. Whoever's it is, can you please clear that up? Right? Or if we hear about it, we'll just broadcast a message. And if people leave clothes in the washer, right, or the dryer, it's a way for people to broadcast that message because even though there's close proximity with the tenants, it's kind of like your neighbors in a motel, right? You're not going to speak to them, but resentment, frustration begins to just
It grows.
fester and grow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they don't have that outlet, that's when you're gonna get turnover. So this gives them that outlet to be able to mention anything that they're unhappy with. But we also hear about it as well. So if, the tenants are having this conversation between themselves about, "Hey, like, sofa would be great here. We just make it magically appear."
Hmm. Right.
But
So
they
like,
replace, like, the batteries and the smart locks. It's the small things. Like, we've got a list.
yeah,
Yeah.
recharging the batteries. I
Yeah,
got you.
exactly.
So like, you mentioned a few different things. You give so many gems. It's like I gotta catch them and go back and try to hit on them. So like you got the you just gave a few different hacks. One of the biggest ones is having someone in that house like be that reporter for you or that assistant as
Yeah.
you call it. So when people are getting into this business, what are like some of the biggest mistakes you see new investors make when they're trying to implement this co-living model? And what are
Yeah.
some of the other ways that they can avoid these pitfalls?
Yeah. So I'll give you like, the top mistakes that I see people make. I guess like, the first one is that they buy the wrong house, right? And, you know, it may be because they've actually partnered with a terrible operator. And I've seen that as well. But, like they purchased a 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom house, 1,000 square foot, okay, and, place with like, strong regulations, right? And so, when you're buying the wrong house, it limits the number of exit strategies that you have. And so even with, the co-living properties that we do purchase, like we do want to be able to sell them like we want to sell them as a business later on. So you don't necessarily like, you don't need to convert it back, right? Again, it's a limitation for people that think that you need to convert it back and sell it as a business.
Hmm.
But, you know, it's either like a co-living or because, they purchased like, at a below market interest rate in a great market as well. Like they can be sold as a wrap or converted to a long-term rental, maybe not cash flow for a little while in the beginning, but I'm confident that rents in those markets will actually increase as well. But in this particular one, even though it was the wrong house, I mean, they could, still sell it as a wrap. Okay. But it was the wrong house. Right? It's not suited for a co-living at all.
Hmm.
The second mistake is, HOAs. Even when, people say no rental restrictions, regardless, you've basically got like, an extra form of government on the house as well. Okay. And so they can change that at any moment. And so I don't like that level of uncertainty. And so I don't do HOAs at all. The third one is like, that people want to do it all on their own. Okay. And this is where I would say, look, just gain clarity over what you want to achieve, because one of the first questions that I ask people when I'm speaking to them is, well, what do you want to achieve? Like, what's your goal? Like, is the
Right.
goal to own a property on your own? Or is it to make 10,000 a month? Because more often than not, people want to achieve financial freedom and they haven't thought about, a particular target, right? Whether it's $10,000 or $5,000 to achieve that. And so when you do think about that, okay, then you start thinking about the possibilities again, right? And so a partnership may actually bring you the opportunity to buy, for example, like 5 co-living properties where you can make $1,000 on each one, or maybe slightly less, and so you need 7 or so. But and then you say, okay, well, how do I get 7? Who do I need to partner with? What would that partnership actually look like? How much is that, going to bring me? And how does it bring me that opportunity? Right. And so now you've actually got the blueprint to be able to achieve that financial freedom, which isn't necessarily too difficult. Right. And now, if you're wondering, like, who do I actually partner with? Like, because I come from that stockbroking background, it's always about like, disclosure showing and like you're speaking to lenders as well. And people say, I want to do my due diligence. Well, in our Facebook community, we like through our content want to do the due diligence for them.
Mhm.
basically show them everything behind the scenes as well. Like, I actually invite my investors to come and see the property, spend the night in the property. Sometimes investors ask, who in their right mind would want to share a room in a house with a full of strangers? It's like, okay, well, you've got, divorcees, you've got students, you've got, retired folk who are on, fixed incomes as well. And you've got young professionals, you've got traveling professionals. But when you go there and you see the people and you see the harmony as well between all the residents as well, then, it starts to increase that believability. And at the same time, like, they become better, like, investors as a result. So we just give, like, the people access. And again, like, as part of playing that long term, it's like, we're patient. Whatever you actually need, we'll show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to get in that Facebook community. I got a house that I just walked yesterday that I'm actually considering taking down.
Yep.
So I definitely love to get your perspective on that if
Yeah, for
possible.
sure. We'll underwrite it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
maybe we could just put it out there as well. And, like, people can hold us accountable for, like, okay, well, how did we underwrite it? And, like, what's the progress 3 months later from, like, when that video was first posted?
yeah, for sure,
But it
for sure.
like, I just wanna add one more thing to, like, the mistakes that people actually make as well. So, like, there's no HOA, but also, um, you know, like, there are some areas where there are very strict regulations. I believe that there is strength in numbers, okay? So,
Mhm.
I avoid the places where there are very strict regulations, right? And that's why I avoid HOAs as well. Now, like, the city compliance, like, codes relaxing, I believe so. Okay. Like, I come from a background where, in my entrepreneurial days, I actually had a beverage company at one stage as well. The opposite of Red Bull, calms you down rather than give you wings. Right. But I was hearing about how drinks like Red Bull became so popular. Now, in Australia, they were actually banned. You couldn't manufacture Red Bull because of the high caffeine content. Okay. And so they would go around that by manufacturing in New Zealand and then shipping it to Australia. And so the point of that story is there are so many different things happening, like in US as well, where, like, anything that's actually new is going to test and challenge the current laws. And
Mhm.
eventually they will turn those laws around. I've seen it happen many, many times as well. Now, these current laws that may be in some particular markets, they do have racist roots, and, like, I'm not like, I read a little bit about them as well, but, like, they, you know, like, it's like based on, like, some interesting things as well, like, because basically, like, people were operating like illegal bordellos and so forth as well. Like, look into it and enlighten me, by dropping it in the comments below as to what, some of these laws are based on. Okay. But, like, I look at when I'm underwriting, are there other operators within that market as well? Because there's
Mhm.
strength in numbers. Okay. And then there's different tools that you've got access to, like, whether it's like membership or lease type agreements. Now we can, getting into the more technical stuff. But the first thing that I do is just, are there other operators? So go to, like, padsplit.com and just see, and avoid those, like, really highly regulated. And, like, the C markets, like, C class markets are generally pretty good. Yeah.
So listen, I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was just saying, like, those are some of the things that, like, I would actually, like, the other one is, like, that sometimes people take too long to make a decision. And that's where you want to delegate to a partner, right? Delegate to a partner. So then that way, they make that buying decision. They help you move forward. Because at the end of the day, your target is actually, whether it's 5,000 or $10,000, get to that target at all costs. Just make it happen. And then you can start entertaining, like, other moonshot ideas, like, hey, I want to get something completely and totally on my own or whatever it may be. Do that later.
Hmm.
I think that my mission is to help people create, like, that investment income, the indestructible income. And, like, I believe that it's indestructible because if it's real estate, people need shelter. They're always going to need shelter.
Always.
Yeah.
This is a recession-proof business right here. People
Yeah.
need a roof over their head, man.
Yeah. And, like, just because, like, people may think, okay, I can procrastinate on this idea. Now, if there's an affordability crisis, real estate prices are actually continuing to actually go up. Some people are up in arms because, the mortgage payments are now above rent. But, like, you look at markets like Australia or London or Hong Kong, like real estate prices are like sky high. They'll continue to actually go up. So if we fast forward 30, 40 years from now, there are those people that are going to be the ones that have cash flowing assets, and majority of the people are going to be do not have these cash flowing assets. Like, you've got to make the choice. Which one do I want to be? Right. And so you need to start taking action towards, buying these cash flowing assets if you do want to be the one that, you know, the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The one that's in control, the one who owns the gold.
exactly.
So that was a like a deep dive in everything that we shouldn't do. As you said, investing in the wrong house. All right.
Yeah.
So what are the key criterias that we should look for when when we're evaluating potential properties or potential investment opportunities?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I generally look for, and, I try to keep it relatively brief because I just want my well, this is something that my business partner Carlos Villanueva, shout out to him. But if you do want a property as well and you're looking at getting into the space, definitely reach out to him. Easiest way to access him is through Facebook community. But we look at properties that are 1,800 square foot plus, minimum 3 bedroom, 2 full bathrooms as well. But the floor plan needs to be, you need to be able to expand the number of rooms as well. So the floor plan needs to be suitable for that. So we need to be able to convert, the dining room, the living room, maybe the garage into extra rooms as well. And then to at least the sweet spot is around 7 rooms. But then again, we don't actually limit to that because the one that we've closed on, that's going to be 10 bedrooms. So you need to be able to look at, the floor plan, send someone through for a walkthrough as well. We do that with all of our properties. The other one is, just the markets as well. Uh, like no HOA, okay, lower regulation. How much money have you actually got to work with as well? We set like our targets are between 80 to $120,000, right? For the amount. And we know that we have that money ready right now. So, you need to be able to decide, okay, do I want something now or do I want something in about 3 months' time? But you can still look as well. Generally, I'm buying things creatively as well, not on market. But there are times where we have actually seen something great on market, but there's always a creative component because
Mm-hmm.
buying on market, then the outlay is going to be a lot more, and your cash on cash return is going to decrease as well. But the markets are also really important. So, while these markets were hot, because we're buying creatively, I believe that we're still buying at an advantage. So, in the markets, like we're mostly in Texas, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look and you're comping, just the easiest way that I can describe it is be the renter, right? So you can go through the journey of that renter. Like I am looking to rent a room in X, city. And so then you'll see all the different options that are available to you. Go and look at what the houses actually look like. What amenities do they provide? How much are they charging per room? What is that, the proximity to all these different places? Now, for me, amenities don't matter too much, but it's a bonus if it's close to, just restaurants and because we have a lot of people like, hospitality workers that rent the rooms. Some people say, it has to be close to public transport. So that is also a big bonus. I just don't go rural. So that's another mistake that some people make. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm constrained by the amount that I can invest and I want to do this all on my own. So I've got 30, 40 grand. I'm going to get something rural out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
It's like, okay, great. You've got your own property, but it's going to take a long time to fill it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So we touched about what not to do. You gave us
Yeah.
some insight on what to do. So earlier we were talking about you got into the conversation about mindset, having the correct mindset and how to how we should observe mistakes and hurdles that we need to cross, right? So I know for a lot of people one of the biggest mindset challenges that they have is actually the people that's closest to them. how is my family going to perceive me? I got a college degree and now I want to get into real estate investing. How's my family members going to look at me now? What are my friends are going to say when I talk about my little real estate thing? Like let's talk about let's get back into the conversation about mindset and
Yeah.
what's your theories about how people should get over that, especially when you're dealing real estate and it could be considered risky or unstable, when you compare it to other traditional career paths.
Yeah. I mean, just on that whole risky part, when I'm talking to some people, they tell me, I don't want to take too much risk. And I look at them and they've got a W-2 and I'm like, you're actually in a much riskier position than I am, like, and I'm not even comfortable with the level of risk that you're actually taking. Right. So like they're just comfortable and they haven't really thought it through, in my opinion. Right. Because what happens if you've been in a certain industry for a really long time and it just becomes redundant as a result of AI or some other change, like technological change, right? So, and like they could, like life could throw something at you, okay, and suddenly you're in a position where you don't actually have a job, and everything was resting on that one pillar, and it's been taken away from you, right? Very risky, in my opinion, and I've seen it to so many people as well. Like a famous person that I can think of is like Jim Carrey, and he said that his dad was an accountant, and then suddenly lost his job, and the whole family was homeless,
Mm,
right? So, that to me is a lot more risky, which is why I have like, my entire emphasis and mission is to help people with that investment income. So, you've got properties in all these different areas that are basically giving me all this rental income right now, which is great. And as you start to learn and develop that skill, it gives you opportunity within the industry to think of different ways to achieve income, which is priceless, right? People want to become millionaires straight away, but just focus on that one thing that will actually get your foot in the door immediately, which is why I say the target is incredibly important. But, the question that you had, like, about, the voice, okay, or like, other people, like family members speaking to you. Now, my family was strict and I'm incredibly grateful that, my parents were very supportive every time I had an entrepreneurial idea. So like I was building and selling computers back when, like, because I was thinking, how can I afford it rather than I can't afford it?
right.
Right. And so my dad would be very supportive. We'd go buy the parts together. We'd put it together and I was selling to family friends. So they weren't really like, hey, don't pitch to, this family friend. It's like, I just pitched them anyway, and I sold it. I got the deal. And other times where I'm like, man, this is too much work and I need to go back to this person because I need to get paid more. My dad wasn't embarrassed standing next to me as I was asking for more money, So all those things really did help. But that being said, you know, uh, my parents did actually, like, well, they were planning for like, normal steady income, job. And it's not like success came incredibly easy, but there's always going to be that voice in your head that basically tells you, okay, that you're doing the wrong thing, that life could
Right.
be different if you take this other path. It's greener on the other side, right? And that voice is never going to stop. Now, the only way that you can actually drown out that voice, okay, inside your mind is if you surround yourself with other people who are doing what you want to do and achieving success in what you
Right.
actually want to do. And
Right.
again, the shortcut is actually going to be partnering with someone. So then that way you're actually taking action, because a form of procrastination is information overload, right? You're just trying to consume as much information as possible, thinking you're doing the right thing. But the right thing for me is like, if someone is seeing success, it's like, okay, cool. Let me just take on one task. I'm doing it. Am I doing it well? Yep. So I'm getting that instant feedback and then layer on complexity by saying, okay, what's the second task? What's the third task? What's the fourth task? Right. Until you become like an expert at it. So, I think that that's the only way that you're going to be able to drown out that voice, because as you start to achieve success, and success can only happen through progress and taking action, okay?
Mhm.
Tony Robbins says progress equals happiness, but progress also says, you see, guys, I told you, here's property number one, here's property number two, okay? And that's a good, sweet feeling as well, right? Because you want to show them.
Right. right,
Yeah,
right. Or here's property number 18.
exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's definitely like we love to hear what our parents have to say, or our close like, and I'm gonna just say parents are our closest family members, and when they're talking to us, they're talking to us out of love, and
100%.
they're trying to protect us, but we know like we have you and I we're entrepreneurs, so we got bigger visions, and we can't play it safe and do the thing. Like
Yeah,
I just recently left my job.
yeah,
I left my career after 23 years.
yeah, wow.
And now like I'm a full-fledged entrepreneur. Like I'm just right now at the time we're shooting this video, I just completed my first week as a full-time entrepreneur after being in a career in a
Congratulations, brother.
government job after 23 and a half years.
I love it.
And when I was going through this, my mom was like, "Kiz, why don't you just wait till you hit year 25? Like you're so close to getting 25 years." I'm like, "Ma, I don't have the patience for that." She's like, "What type of patience do you need?" I said, "The kind I don't have. I don't want to do that anymore." So, but she was like completely supportive, like of what I'm doing now. But it's always out of love when we're hearing them challenges. So people like just take action and just take the action, do the thing, whatever that thing may be for you, do the thing, and it's going to kill all fears. It's going to silence the haters. It's going to silence the people that love you the most. Again, when they're talking to you and you're dealing with mindset challenges, it's like they're talking to you out of love. So don't be disrespectful towards them,
Yeah,
but
look,
just
100%.
just do your thing and make them believers, make the non-believers believers through your actions and your success.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that, I definitely want to add because I do see this as well, but, it's this in, like sometimes, when like, because parents or family or people around you, because it could be friends as well. I mean, they were brought up with a different set of beliefs, right? And so if they've
Mhm.
been brought up with a different set of beliefs and like, just how they've actually, well, how they've been brought up and they've experienced different things in life as well that made them believe the way they do, right? It's respecting that, okay, and understanding that, but, some people say, okay, well, I need to change that. Okay. And so a lot of their energy will be, trying to change that as opposed to focusing on the activity that's going to help them achieve the target that they actually set for themselves. Right. So for a long time, I mean, I kind of thought, okay, like if I talk to my parents, I'm trying to seek some relief. Okay. Because I could be going through some challenges. But look, my parents may be able to provide that for me in certain areas, but not in other
Mhm.
areas, right? And so I need to go and be proactive about finding it. Now, it's this entitlement mindset that no, they need to do that for me. It's like, well, no, not really, right? Go out and seek, like, and you can do that through the community that you're actually building, right? So if someone tells you, hey, man, I'm experiencing a bit of challenge with this, like from your own experience, you're going to be able to give them like a nugget that they won't receive from their family, right?
Right.
And other times it's like, when you're chatting to other real estate investors, like, oh man, there's like tenants are a pain in the ass. And like, everyone's sharing, you're like, oh man, I'm actually feeling a lot better now, like venting. Because you've got people that actually understand it. Take that from like, the community, not necessarily from your parents.
Right.
And so like I limited what I was saying to my parents, okay? But when I started to see success, then I started to share that success. And so like even now, like, for example, they would say, son, make sure you're, like, what is it? Like either setting the right foundation again. And I'm like, okay, cool. What does that foundation actually look like? Cause they'll describe someone who's actually saving. And I'm like, okay, cool. They're saving and they're putting it where? In a bank account. Okay, cool. What interest rate is that bank account earning?
0.000002.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm like, "That sounds pretty cool, but wouldn't it be better if they actually put that money in a cash flowing asset?" It's like, yeah, I guess." Like, and wouldn't it be amazing if that cash flowing asset was negotiated with a 0% interest rate? It's like, "Yeah."
Oh.
And I'm like, "Well, that's what I just negotiated the other day." And they're like, "Oh, wow." And that's it. Now they're actually starting to understand, right? It's
You're
like
right.
every single monthly payment is going straight towards debt pay down. They're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, keep going, keep going."
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
because now I'm talking to them on their level, like just the way they're actually thinking, and I'm talking with a clear head, like not getting frustrated anymore, right? Whereas when you're trying to prove it to them in the beginning, you're just getting frustrated and it's setting you back. And I think that's why, like, it's key to like connect with the right community and get the right things that you actually need that you're not necessarily going to get from your parents or family or friends.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. So, Chad, like you started this podcast off with talking about how you got started and you acquired a mentor. And you also dropped little nuggets throughout the podcast about the community that you run, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the biggest keys that you as a viewer need to take away from this is like you need to be in the right environment. You need to be surrounded around people who's doing the thing that it is that you want to do. Again, whatever that thing may be, Chad is a co-living expert. I do various forms of real estate investing. We're both part of various communities to surround ourselves around people who are have the common interest in is walking the same path on this. If they're not on the same path as us, they're heading in the same direction down the road in which we're also heading. So, Chad, just real short, keep it real short. Just talk about the importance for new people, for new investors, or people who's just getting into the space. The importance for them to find that support system.
Look, it's everything. Okay. Because you could be walking in with absolutely no idea. Okay. And the hardest thing is actually taking that step, walking in, but be honest and just say, look, I've got no idea. I want to know what the possibilities are, and be patient, right? Because again, that knowledge will actually compound, and trust that it will, right? Or you could be walking in with some level of experience, and again, like, leave the ego behind and stay, like, keep an open mind, because we were discussing about all the different possibilities, and you could be, you know going through some limitations as well. But if you keep an open mind, how are different people actually operating, and hear from them, learn from them. And so, that's like, I guess, like, one of the things that I do, and, like, I look at, always connecting with other experts as well, because, you can basically collaborate. It's not competition for me. I'm like, one man's success is not taken away from my success.
Mhm.
If anything, the collaboration that I actually want to do is like, yeah, let's share, like, one another's success, like, and how you can be more successful doing this thing. But more often than not, an expert is doing something big in another investment class, or they, like, or if you've got multifamily goals as well, like, we're about to take down a 72 unit, and if that expert is, like, wants to reach up to multifamily, let me introduce them to what's happening behind the curtains. Your investment is going to go beyond the income that you're actually going to generate from that particular property. It's going to, open you up to more possibilities, right? And so that's what we're basically introducing to other experts as well. But not only me introducing that to them, they can introduce me to other things as well, whether it's mobile home parks, RV parks, buying businesses, and so forth. Like, I want long-term relationships, right?
Mhm.
And so we're positioning ourselves as that long-term relationship for people who want that indestructible income stream.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Chad, look, man, I just want to tell you thank you in advance. Thank you in advance. Like you just spent, I don't know, the last hour, like we're deep diving into the philosophies of co-living and the
Yeah.
benefits of it. Like you're going to be speaking at our event on June 4th, here in Miramar, Florida at the Broward Sub 2 meetup, June 4th at Tribeca Restaurant and Lounge.
Yep.
We're going to specifically talk about the co-living model. Like, don't give away too much. Like, we just gave them a whole master's class if they actually paid attention. Like, this is like considered a master's class in the co-living model if you actually paid attention to what he did, the information that he shared. But like, just tell us a little bit, just a little bit, because I want them to show up. Like, what specific strategies or case studies will you be sharing with the attendees at the event? Now, we just want to give them a little snippet because we still want them to attend. So just
No,
keep it.
absolutely. Okay, so I want you to attend even if you don't have any resources, because you'll understand how you can go from zero property to at least one property, right? With the limited funds that you believe you have. If you've got funds and you haven't even got started yet, we will share exactly how you can get started with a successful co-living property straight away. Okay. And if you're an expert, as I was saying, like, you get to collaborate, understand, fill in some gaps. But at the same time, you may be able to fill in, like, some gaps that we may have within our business model, but collaborate on other ideas as well. Right.
Right.
And if, for example, you are sitting on the sidelines thinking, hey, I'm already busy doing what I'm doing, I'm a business owner or I'm a higher income earning professional, and you're like, but how do I ride this wave? How do I actually get involved as an investor? What kind of returns could I actually be making? That's all the stuff that we're going to be sharing at Israel's event. Okay, which I'm incredibly looking forward to as well. And I don't think people appreciate how much time, effort, and energy actually goes into it and what they can get out of it. Like the return on investment. Okay. Your investment is basically jumping into your car. Okay. Or if you run and that's your preferred method, great, run there. Okay. But that's basically your investment. Okay. And the return is everything that we just discussed just then. Okay.
Right.
It's phenomenal.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And then let's do some future casting, like with the co-living model. Again, we're going into an economy that's going to go worse. Rental properties, the values of properties are getting higher. They're never going to fall, right?
Yeah.
Well, the values may fall, but the rental rates, once the rental rate goes so high, landlords aren't going to drop the rates. So what opportunities should investors be positioning themselves for today? Like looking like just thinking about the future.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I'm speaking very broadly. I think that we're going to be more of a renters nation, right? And so the opportunities that you can actually expect is that, I'm cash flowing about, 20 to 40% cash on cash return on some of these properties. We look at anything that's 15%, and that's today, right? Fast forward, I don't know, however much time and put any level of growth rate, what you can expect. I mean, some people say property prices double every 10 years. That's 7% growth on these properties. So 7% appreciation on, say, a $300,000 property. That's 21 grand in its first year. But then rents also increase as well. And what was the stat on that? Like double every 5 years or something? I can't remember.
Hmm.
But but yeah, so like, those are some of the things that you can expect. And like, being a renters nation as well, it gives opportunity with other investment classes as well. Now, when you've got a co-living property with 7 rooms, you raise the rents by $50 a month. Okay. Congrats, you're making an extra $350 a month. But for those who are not thinking about the bigger game yet, or they are, and the things that we want to show them behind the curtain, when you're raising the rents by $50 on a 72 unit multifamily, 72 times 50, I'm not going to do the calculation, but please drop it in the
Equals a
comments
lot.
below. Yeah. 72 units, $50 increase. Okay. And let's say like it has a cap rate of 6%. Okay. That alone is actually going to be a significant increase. It could be like, $200,000, right?
Right.
Which is quite significant, on the valuation of the property. Now, you're not going to get that with single family, but you're not missing out. It's creating the opportunity for you to reach up to bigger assets.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Guys, $50 by 72 equals a lot of money. And the cap rate,
exactly.
and when you're talking about commercial, that just quadruples the value of that asset.
Yeah.
So it's next level stuff. So Chad, like last question, man. On for those that will be attending the event, speak a little bit about just one actionable item that you will share with them that will help level their game up. And then also share with how we can follow you, find out about more what you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. The actionable step, I'm going to break it down towards like, the skill level that you may actually have. If you're a complete newbie, okay, I would recommend, okay, the actionable step meaning to be introduce yourself to those who are already in the co-living space, right? Because otherwise you're going to be limited by your imagination. You're going to watch this with certain level of cynicism. Hey, this is never going to last. Who in their right mind would want to rent these rooms? I think that this could be a fad. Speak to other operators and just keep an open mind. Now, if you are an experienced person, the actionable step could be, just share the six, like, you could be achieving a certain level of success within your business right now as a co-living operator. Share what you do that is helping you achieve that success as well. And the other person that you're chatting to is going to reciprocate. And so I think that that is going to be incredibly valuable, because then you're going to walk away with 3, 4 nuggets that you can actually implement. And that could be a massive game changer, right? And so then if you, for example, you are sitting on some money, or you don't even know if you're sitting on some money, okay, by speaking to someone like myself, who's an experienced operator, they'll help you uncover some of the funds that you could be sitting on, whether it's in your equity, your retirement account. But you could also be getting access to, money that you didn't otherwise know that you had access to as well, right? And some at, 0% as well. And those could give you that opportunity to really start building that investment income. Again, so my key for the actionable step for that is just speak to the expert operators, understand how you can get involved. Okay, and if you want to know how to be able to tap and unlock, some of those funds as well, speak to me.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, and bottom line, guys, what Chad is getting at, we're here for you. We're here to help you. We're here to help you level up to the next step, wherever you may be in your journey. Whether you're a complete newbie, like we're going to give you the gems to help you get started. If you're an experienced investor, we're going to give you some gems just to take you one notch higher to from where you are right now. But what it requires you to be in the right rooms with the right people. And that room will be at the Tribeca Restaurant and Lounge on June 4th, here in Miramar, Florida, at the Broward County Sub 2 meetup. I hope to see you there.
Yeah, no, we hope to see you there. Like, guys, introduce yourselves, shake hands. Let's introduce one another as well. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have, my videographer there as well, which is great. I'm so excited about it as well. So you know, we basically want to capture that moment as well. So we're I'm hoping, it's an absolute full house. And if it's not, then you got to ask yourself, why are you not prioritizing building investment income? Okay. And if you believe that you're too busy to do so, okay, then you're prioritizing the wrong things. Just
Nah,
get
we
in there, okay,
yeah.
like expecting a packed house, okay. And if you've got any questions about it as well, where can you actually find me? So Chad Yesilova, quite a unique name, okay. If you punch that into, Facebook, boom, you'll find me, okay. But on Instagram, it's at Chad Yesilova. And on all of my bios as well, you'll get access to that Facebook group as well.
Okay. Okay. And guys, I'll be sure to leave Chad's information in the description of this video. So all you got to do is click the link and tap in.
Yeah,
There's no
absolutely.
reason why this room shouldn't be packed. We packed the house out. We had about 75 to 100 people on our meetup last month. We're going to drop these videos in advance of that meetup, so I'm hoping like that room will almost double if we don't get the
Yeah.
same numbers. But guys, it's no reason for you not to come. It's a free event. It's going to cost you nothing but your time to drive there.
Man, I'm going to build up the value a little bit more as well. So if you're
Yeah,
at the event and you take a selfie as well and you tag me, okay, I'm going to give away 2 one-on-one consultations. Now, if there's a lot of people that are tagging as well, I'll maybe increase that as well. Okay. So
right.
that one-on-one consultation could mean the difference between you not having a property and you having a property. And I can tell you right now, I met with a new friend last weekend, and it was on the Sunday, and we set a target that she will have a property within the next 60 days as well. Okay, so maybe we should document her journey, but it gives you an
Absolutely.
idea of what is actually possible.
Absolutely, guys. And it's possible if you do it, if you take the action, if you work. But look, Chad, again, I just want to say thank you, man. I appreciate you for spending this last hour, however long it's been. It seems like it's only been 5, 10 minutes, but I know it's been much longer than that because we're having fun. Like we're actually we enjoy this talk. For the rest of you
100%.
guys, do me a favor, make sure you share this video, like and leave a comment about one thing you learned from this. Just leave one comment about what you learned, if you learned anything at all. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like it does tremendous. Like we spend a lot of time to try to put this content together for you, and just a subscription, like it helps us tremendously with the algorithm, and getting our message out there to more people. And also hit that notification bell. Go ahead and tap that thing right now. Go ahead and tap it right now. See y'all June 4th. Chad, again, thank you, man. I'm full of gratitude. I'm so grateful for this time. I'm looking forward to June 4th when we link up face to face in person. He's gonna be dropping some gems, guys. He shared this presentation with me. Like,
Yeah.
y'all gotta come.
Let's
Y'all
do it.
gotta come. Y'all gotta come. Look, don't meet me there, beat me there. I'll see y'all June 4th, guys. Salute. Peace.